this is Justin Branham for MasterFiddle.com, and in this lesson we're going to learn a cool bebop fiddle solo from a tune I wrote, an arrangement of a tune I wrote called Blues for E and E, and it's just a blues, 12-bar blues in the key of D. But it gave me a good opportunity to improvise a little 12-bar solo here and teach you some kind of standard vocabulary that you could use for Western swing, or if you play some bebop, gypsy jazz, anything like that. We're definitely reaching into that bebop bag with this solo though, which is something that I like to do. I think it blends well into the older swing styles that you hear more commonly on fiddle. So the way maybe Johnny Gimbel would play, or Stefan Grappelli or Joe Venuti, Sven Osmus, and people like that. Some of those guys would dip into bebop. Nobody would play like pure bebop. And then a lot of string players who play guitar or steel guitar will get even further into that. And so in Western swing in particular, you hear a lot of steel guitarists who really use a lot of great bebop vocabulary. And I've gotten a lot from steel guitarists, and of course saxophone and jazz guitar. So this solo is going to be kind of more in that bebop vein, but definitely playable by anybody who has intermediate to advanced level chops and is comfortable moving up into third position. So the first 4 bars of the solo is over D, with the 4th bar going to D7 to transition us to a G chord. And we're going to have this line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Resolving to that B note on the next phrase. And the first little bit of it is just this kind of a riff type phrase that's common in swing, really more of a big band type phrase, but I come in on beat 2. So I don't play on beat 1. I wait, come in on an up bow, 4th finger on the G string, a D note, to a 2nd finger on the D string, an F sharp, then 3 up bows on that D note again. That's a great exercise for swing bowing too. Just play on the and of each beat and pulse an up bow like that. You could do it with downs too. We'll use that a lot with swing bowing. Okay, then a 3rd finger on the D string, a G note on a down bow. Then 3 more up bows on that D note. And then a G sharp, high 3rd finger on the D string. So now we've got 1. And then our transition line to the G chord. Little bebop vocabulary using the diminished scale there. 3rd finger, again, high 3rd finger on the G string. That's the flat 5 of this chord. Down to a 2nd finger on the D string, an F sharp. Slur that on that down bow over to a 3rd finger on the A string, a D note. 2nd finger low to C natural, that's the flat 7 of this chord. Then an F natural, 1st finger on the E string, low 1st finger. That's the sharp 9 of this chord. Then a low 4th finger on the A string, an E flat. We're going to slur this on an up bow to a D note, 3rd finger. And then 2nd finger, low 2nd finger on the A string, C natural, that's that flat 7 again. Slur that down bow into the next measure is going to be slurred to a B note, so C to B. And then we can start our next phrase. So that last bit of the phrase, and all that is diminished scale. I'm not playing the straight scale to start out. I kind of walk up and play around the scale and then come down the diminished scale. And what a diminished scale is if you start on the root of your chord and you play a half step above that. So if we have D7 and we want to play the correct diminished scale over that, we would play D and then go up a half step to E flat and then go a whole step to an F note and then a half step to F sharp and then a whole step. So we're going to alternate half steps and whole steps. And when it's played that way, it's usually called the half whole scale, and the diminished scale would actually start on one of the notes of the diminished chord. And there's different ways we can think about this, but probably the easiest way to find it over a dominant 7th chord is to do what I just said and do that half step, whole step method. But you could also look at the diminished chord that you would use as a substitute chord for D7, which would be E flat diminished seventh, that's a half step above the root of our chord. That gives you the diminished chord that you can substitute. You can also look at the third of the chord, play F sharp diminished seventh, and that's actually the same thing as E flat diminished seventh. Diminished chords move up in minor thirds and just repeat the same notes with different inversions. Now, if we thought of it more as a diminished scale, then we would do the opposite. We would do E flat to F, which would be a whole step, and then F to F sharp, which would be a half step, and we would continue that pattern. So it would be whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, until we came back to where we started. It's also called the octatonic scale because it has 8 notes. It's unusual in that it has an 8-note, 8 different notes in the scale, and it's a symmetrical scale, meaning that the pattern is always the same. So unlike a major scale, which is kind of asymmetrical, you've got whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, I think. I think I said that right. Or you've got half steps in between 3 and 4 and 7 back to 1. This has whole step, half step, whole step, half step, and that pattern continues no matter what. So anyway, that's what a diminished scale is, and we can use that over dominant seventh chords because it gives us all of the altered notes that go with that chord. So we get the flat 5, we get the dominant seventh, which is not an altered note, but it's part of a dominant seventh chord. We get the flat 9, and we get the sharp 9, and that line that I played there has the G sharp. That's the flat 5, F sharp is the third, D is the root. So we have all the basic chord members in that scale too. We've got D, F sharp, A, and C natural, all of the basic chord members. Then we've got the flat 5, we've got the sharp 9, flat 9, and we also have the natural 5 and the natural 9, or the natural 13 rather. So we have some non-altered notes in there too. Anyway, that gets us through that first line. I'll play it one more time and then we'll go to the third line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, our next line, which we just finished on the first note of that next line, sounds like